Ethan felt a sharp pain shoot through his foot. He looked down and realized he had stepped on something buried in the wet sand. At first he thought it was broken shell, but when he picked it up, his stomach dropped. It was heavy, almost unnaturally so, and something about the way it caught the light made his hands tremble. Ethan believed he had just stumbled onto something worth a fortune. He decided to take it to a jeweler and cash in. But this stone would change his life in ways he never could have imagined. Before we continue, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. Now back to Ethan. He was limping badly when a lifeguard jogged over and asked if he was okay. Ethan almost hid the stone. Almost. But something made him open his hand. The second he did, the stone started glowing. The lifeguard's eyes went wide. He asked if he could hold it. Ethan hesitated but handed it over. The instant the stone left his palm, it stopped glowing completely. The lifeguard turned it over, confused. He handed it back. It started glowing again. The lifeguard told Ethan he had every right to keep whatever he found. Ethan felt relieved. He had no idea he would come to regret that moment. Ethan drove straight to the only jeweler he trusted, a guy named Vincent who ran a small shop on the east side of Santa Cruz. The store was empty when he walked in. Vincent looked surprised to see him. Ethan could barely contain himself. He started rambling about the stone. Vincent didn't believe him at first. He figured it was some cheap souvenir. But when Ethan placed it on the counter and it pulsed with light under his fingertips, Vincent leaned in closer. Ethan slid it across the glass. The glow vanished. Vincent picked it up. Nothing. Then something shifted in Vincent's face. His eyes narrowed. He recognized something. Ethan could see it clearly. Vincent told Ethan he needed 24 hours to authenticate the stone. Only then could he make a fair offer. Ethan didn't love the idea of leaving it behind, but he agreed. That night Ethan couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned for hours, his mind racing. Was this stone worth thousands? Hundreds of thousands? He drifted off around 3 in the morning, but woke an hour later drenched in sweat. Something felt wrong. He couldn't explain it. He just knew. The next morning, Ethan walked back into Vincent's shop. The energy was completely different. No greeting. No smile. Vincent stood behind the counter with his arms crossed and told Ethan he could not have the stone back. He said Ethan didn't have the right to it anymore. Ethan asked what that meant. Vincent wouldn't explain. Ethan lost it. The two got into a heated argument right there in the store while other customers watched. Without warning, Ethan walked into the back office looking for the stone. Vincent followed him, shouting. They argued until Vincent finally caved and handed Ethan a stone. But it didn't glow. Ethan turned it over in his hand. It was lighter, cheaper looking. Vincent had given him a fake. Ethan threw it back and told him to stop playing games. Vincent sighed, opened the locked drawer, and handed over the real one. It glowed the second it touched Ethan's skin. Then Vincent said something that made Ethan's blood run cold. You just made a very big mistake. You should not have taken that back. You are going to regret this. Ethan walked out. Those words echoed in his head the entire drive home. He gripped the stone tightly and checked his mirrors. That was when he noticed it. A black van, 2 cars behind him. He turned left. The van turned left. The van turned left. He turned right. The van turned right. Ethan drove the same loop 3 times just to be sure. The van stayed with him every single time. His heart was pounding. He floored the gas and started weaving through traffic. For one brief second he thought about throwing the stone out the window, but he couldn't do it. After several sharp turns through a residential neighborhood, he finally lost the van. What Ethan didn't know was that Vincent had made a phone call the moment Ethan left the store the day before. Vincent had recognized the stone from a news report about a massive diamond heist, one of the largest in U.S. history. Instead of calling the police, Vincent contacted the criminal buyers connected to the stolen diamonds. He thought he could broker a deal and take a cut. That single phone call put a target on Ethan's back and set everything in motion. That evening, Ethan was too anxious to stay home. He drove to his friend Derek's apartment and showed him the stone. Derek told him to be careful. That decision to leave his house probably saved Ethan's life. When Ethan returned 2 hours later, he turned pale. Neighbors were gathered out front. His window was shattered. His door had been kicked in. Inside, every drawer was pulled out. Furniture was flipped. Closets were torn apart. But nothing was stolen. They weren't after electronics or cash. They were after the stone. Ethan called the police. After 30 minutes, a single officer arrived. He seemed to take it seriously at first, but then he received a phone call. When he hung up, his entire demeanor changed. He barely looked at the damage, told Ethan to file the report online, climbed back into his cruiser, and drove away without another word. Ethan was now certain this went deeper than a simple break-in. He didn't sleep that night. His neighbor let him crash on the couch. The second the sun came up, Ethan drove to another jewelry store across town. He needed to sell the stone and end this nightmare. When he walked in, the jeweler greeted him warmly. Too warmly. It felt like Ethan was expected. The jeweler asked to see the stone. Ethan placed it on the counter. It sat dull and lifeless. The jeweler asked him to pick it up. The moment Ethan's fingers wrapped around it, the stone erupted with light. The jeweler's eyes widened, and he immediately offered $250,000. Ethan almost collapsed with relief. He agreed without hesitation. The jeweler said he would retrieve the cash from his vault and disappeared into the back. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. Ethan knocked on the office door. No answer. That was when he noticed a man standing in the corner of the store, a man who had been there since Ethan walked in. He wasn't shopping. He was watching. Before Ethan could react, something slammed into the back of his head. He hit the ground hard. Through blurred vision, he saw the jeweler return and say to the man, "That's him. That's the one we've been waiting for." Then he heard shouting. Doors crashed open. FBI agents stormed the store with weapons drawn. The jeweler and the man were thrown to the ground and handcuffed. The entire store had been under federal surveillance. The FBI had been tracking the stolen diamonds for weeks and had set up the sting after intercepting Vincent's phone calls to the buyers. Ethan was pulled to his feet, placed in handcuffs as a precaution, and taken to the nearest FBI field office. Agents placed the stone on the table and demanded to know where he got it and who he was working with. Ethan was shaking. He could barely speak. After 2 hours of interrogation, he finally calmed down enough to tell his story from the beginning. He explained how he had stepped on the stone while surfing. He showed them the scar on his foot. The agents were skeptical but agreed to investigate. They brought Ethan back to the beach. He pointed to the exact spot where he had found the stone. Then something fortunate happened. The same lifeguard from that day was on duty. He remembered everything: the injured foot, the glowing stone, the conversation. That testimony gave Ethan the alibi he desperately needed. The FBI's forensic team later explained the glow. The diamonds from the heist had been coated with a phosphorescent tracking compound designed to activate through prolonged skin contact and body heat. Because Ethan had dug the stone from the sand and gripped it tightly, his body temperature triggered the coating. When others held it briefly, the compound cooled and the glow faded. The mystery that had haunted Ethan for days had a scientific answer all along. Further investigation of the shoreline revealed more diamonds buried in the shallow water. The thieves had hijacked a private cargo plane carrying over $12 million in uncut diamonds. During their escape over the Pacific, turbulence caused several stones to fall into the ocean near the Santa Cruz coast. Vincent was arrested for contacting the criminal network. The second jeweler and the man in the store were taken into federal custody as part of the trafficking ring. 6 suspects were arrested in total. Ethan was fully cleared of all charges. The FBI compensated him for every dollar of property damage. And because his discovery led directly to the recovery of the stolen diamonds and the dismantling of the operation, he received a federal witness reward of $375,000. Ethan moved to a quiet town on the Oregon coast, paid off every debt he had, and started over. But late at night, he would still think about that sharp pain in his foot and how the worst moment of his day became the most important moment of his life. If he had just kept walking, none of it would have happened. If you made it this far, drop a comment telling me what you would have done with the stone. Would you have kept it or thrown it back? Like and subscribe for more stories like this one.